What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel for another review. Today we are talking about Nicole Kidman's new movie that is going to Amazon Prime this weekend, and that is Holland. This movie is an R-rated psychological thriller slash dark comedy satire. I don't think the trailer did a good job of conveying what the tone is here. Anyways, it's set in Holland, Michigan, which is where I work. It's about a 15-mile drive from my apartment, so needless to say, there is a certain degree of novelty to watching something like this on the big screen and seeing locations that you've been to being portrayed. Although I think it's worth noting that a majority of principal photography took place in Nashville, Tennessee. They only shot like 2 days in Holland. Whatever, I still thought it was kind of cool to see the Tulip Festival being replicated on screen, to see the windmill gardens. But having somewhat of a personal connection to the film makes me all the more saddened to report that this movie is an undercooked mess. Perhaps this is a little too obvious of a comparison, but it's another movie that stars Nicole Kidman, and I think it kind of gives you a general idea of what the premise is. Think of The Stepford Wives, if you've ever watched that. We have a woman played by Nicole Kidman. Her name is Nancy. She lives in a very idyllic suburban town with a husband and a son. Her husband, Fred, played by Matthew Macfadyen, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, is an optometrist, and he goes away for business a lot. One day she stumbles upon a receipt in, I can't remember, his coat or his wallet or something, that is from Wisconsin, and so she begins to suspect that he may be cheating on her. I should probably make it clear that the comparisons to The Stepford Wives are largely superficial. I think this is similar to that in terms of the vibe, not necessarily the material. And that is to say that this movie, to me, it seemed like it had no idea what it wanted to be. The characters are so quirky, and there are some surreal elements to it, and that left me thinking that it was going to be like The Stepford Wives or Don't Worry, Darling, in that there would be some big reveal at the end that uncovers this massive plot that was happening behind the characters' backs that we didn't know about. But after a little while, it became clear that this movie had no intention to go anywhere beyond the surface level implications of the characters and their actions. I mean, by the time you get to the final frame, not only is the reveal of what's actually happening remarkably predictable, it also leaves the motivations behind the characters completely unanswered. I'm starting to see a lot of Nicole Kidman hate on the internet, and I'm not going to say it isn't all warranted, but I appreciate what she's doing, right? She is finding a lot of work lately, and maybe she just needs to build a new garage or something. But either way, I think she's putting a lot of effort forward. I don't think she's bad in this movie. I think the material that she was given is bad. Every line of dialogue in this movie, she delivers it like she's a little lost puppy, and it didn't work for me. As a huge fan of Matthew Macfadyen, I loved him in Severance, even though I haven't seen much of that show. I need to finish it. I also thought he was super charismatic in a movie that's as surface level as something like Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't know, I got the vibe that he was phoning it in here. Either that or the material that he was given is equally as weak as Kidman's, and that's why it's coming across as weak. Here's another one that I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing right. Gael Garcia Bernal is in this movie as well as Dave. Nancy is a teacher at Holland High School, I believe, and Dave is one of her coworkers who she informs about her suspicions about her husband's infidelity. And they do have somewhat of a relationship, but that relationship is never truly disclosed to us because Dave is solely a device used to further Nancy's investigations. He has no personality of his own, and nearly every single line of dialogue from him is somehow related to Nancy. Come on, movie, would it kill you to flesh out your characters just a little bit? I don't want to give off the impression that I hated this movie. There are things that I liked about it, particularly the visuals, I think work a large amount of the time. There are a couple of dream sequences that do a great job of utilizing. Fred has this little miniature diorama of Holland, and Nancy finds herself walking among the replica. This film is directed by Mimi Cave, whose debut was Fresh from a couple of years ago, which went straight to Hulu, I believe. That was a genuinely sharp satire on modern dating culture. And once again here, I think she shows talent behind the camera. It's just that this screenplay is a mostly disastrous mess that only works until you know what's actually happening, because it is very anticlimactic. I do think there is an attempt to say something about how idyllic suburbia can lull you into a false sense of complacency, but it does an extremely poor job of executing that idea. So ultimately, this is a very forgettable movie that's not frightening enough to elicit any degree of fear, and it certainly isn't darkly comedic enough to have any sort of meaningful satire either. So it just kind of comes off as this limp conglomerate of both tones. Combine that with the weak characterizations all around, and you just have a movie that I'm not going to remember in a couple of days. I'm so sorry, but I have to give Holland 2 stars. Believe me, I wanted nothing more than to sit here and say that this movie is great, but I don't see what you could get out of this that you couldn't get out of about 100 other films that attempt the same thing and achieve it much better. So those are my thoughts on the film. It drops on Amazon Prime on Thursday or Friday, I can't remember which. So if you have an Amazon subscription, I guess there's no loss from watching it aside from your time. But if you're going off of my recommendation, I would watch something else. Before you head out, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you later.